All right, welcome to This Is Podcasting. I'm your host, Connor, and I got co-host Jaden here, and former guest Calvin.
Thanks for having me back.
And we are discussing a quick dip on the fly, the 1986 David Cronenberg version. And who recommended this one, Calvin?
Oh, Mackenzie recommended this one to us.
Friend of the podcast, Mackenzie. So I'm glad we finally got to this one. I always like to do things that are suggested to us. So
yeah, one of our tens of listeners.
Yeah,
Yep.
We have.
She's a loyal fan.
Yeah, we have more than enough time on our hands to go and do the things that are recommended by people who want to hear them. So I'm excited to do this one. Jaden, what's your first impression of this film?
So I watched this movie kind of a lot when I was younger because it's one of my dad's favorites. When I was a kid, I actually got scared of it quite a bit. I thought it was freaky. But as an adult, I enjoy it. It's very weird, goofy, but there's a lot of amazing things about it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Calvin, what do you think of this one?
I have less amazing things to say about it. Starting with the fact that it is made in the 80s.
Yeah.
So
it's got that feel to it for sure.
Yeah. It's feel is like is a strange word. It's all about like it's all about this vibe that 80s have is like this plastic aesthetic. And I think that's why a lot of the practical makeup was so big in the 80s, and why it like stands out as part of like horror genre. Like, oh yeah, 80s was a high point for genre because of that, because of all of the makeup. But it just suffers from everything that's wrong with the 80s in terms of plot structure and camera language.
And haircuts.
My God,
Jeff Goldblum's hair is amazing.
Yeah, I know, right?
He's got the flowing locks. It's awesome.
That's the thing that makes me the most sad about when he turns into the Fly. Like, oh,
his hair. I went into this. I think I've never had a more wrong preconceived notion of what I thought a film was going to be. I thought this was going to be just like totally goofy throughout, and I was like, it's just Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum, and I was like, oh, this is going to be funny. And I think the first half of the movie is a lot like that, and then the second half, I was like really shocked. I was like, oh, it's like really kind of tragic story, and it actually, I thought that emotion translated well for me at least. I know maybe you guys don't like latch on to that as well, but I thought I actually felt like a lot of sympathy, and I was like, oh, this poor guy at the end. And then like Jaden said, and I love all the practical effects. It's such a very 80s thing. I think there's like a charming quality to seeing that kind of stuff, whereas like you can look back at an 80s movie and be like, I know it's fake, but it's like, it's nice. And it's like, I like seeing that. And that's something you don't see. Like, I think when you look back at movies that have like bad old CGI, there's nothing charming about that. It's like, oh, this is distracting. But all the, just the creepy, imagery and all the practical effects in this, I think are fun to see. And I'm just like, that's one thing I like about 80s movies. I'm like, okay, I like seeing this. It's like comforting part of the 80s, very like something I like to see when I go into a movie like this. So I like that stuff a lot.
Yeah, I think it's neat.
Yeah, so, and I would say that my problem is so much to do with the fact that I don't find any emotion in the second half, because the character development of Seth, Jeff Goldblum's character, is one where he's a creepy like nerd, like, oh yeah, I have this great project, you have to see it, I'm not lying, unlike everyone else. And then but he wants to connect with someone, but he doesn't want to tell the world. It's so strange. And then all of a sudden they're in love and they're having sex, and there's literally no reason for any of that. And then he slowly starts to mutate and becomes like abusive and bad. And then it's like he tries to I want to be good, teach me how to be human at the end. And then he ultimately isn't. Like it's just none of it feels like I care about this character, because he's all over the place and none of them are good aspects. It's just the fact that they had sex at one point, like, oh, he's so dreamy, like that's why you feel for him.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the romance, because that's one of my big problems with this. It's so fast there. I mean, it's in like
it's basically like a slap in the face. It happens so fast.
Yeah,
that whole relationship is built on Veronica. She basically is like, you're kind of cute, and then all of a sudden they're sleeping together, and then like 30 minutes in the movie, Seth even says, he's like, are we having a romance right now? It's like just to really let you know, like, okay, you guys just need to, I know we didn't build it up at all, but you need to believe that they're in a relationship now. And it doesn't work at all. Like the romance is garbage. which is unfortunate because I think if it had been built up better in the first half, then maybe this kind of change in Seth and kind of the sympathy she has from at the end would have felt more natural.
Yeah, they should have just been together before the movie started.
I thought that too, which is
which I know kind of takes away from the the reporter kind of aspect of her character. But then again, I just remember that just now. I forgot all about it because it's so little in the movie, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, and the other thing that it also sets up is her ex-boyfriend, because again, because I think this film is being an allegory for abusive relationships and how if you don't heal, you kind of bounce around between ones that you think are better and that turn out to be bad, just because you're looking for you don't know what you actually need in life, and you keep finding the same thing. So I think that the fact that they weren't together at the beginning also keeps with that theme. But I think there is a better way of doing it that you don't need as much screen time then to devote to the change of their relationship and how they actually do care about each other. But they just decided to go with the worst of both.
Yeah, I actually kind of like the idea of them at least having some rapport, like some kind of relationship prior. It would actually kind of fit because Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum were actually dating when this was filmed. So kind of that idea would have maybe built you could have introduced some of the chemistry from their actual relationship.
Yeah.
Which I guess David Cronenberg made a point. He wanted them to kind of disconnect for a while.
Which you can tell.
Yeah, because again, this romance is so awkward and weird. It doesn't seem very natural.
It seems like two people who are actually dating, pretending that they're not dating, but dating somehow. And it's very awkward, and it just doesn't. It's all of the scenes where they're laying in bed together and stuff. I'm just like, this is uncomfortable for me. This is weird. It doesn't feel natural at all.
It feels like they changed some of their their personality to surprise the other person. Do you ever wash your clothes? Oh yeah, I just have 5 sets of the same thing. I bet that was oh yeah, that's funny.
You talked about her ex-boyfriend. Do we want to talk about Stathis?
Yeah, let's talk about Stathis.
I don't think there's a lot to him. He's played by John Gentz. Just as your classic jerk, former jaded lover. I don't think there's a ton of that character. I think he comes up big in the end.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's part of that is not earned because he's just such a douchebag.
Yeah, he's just
a
movie. Vessel for jealousy and the whole time, and then apparently that's what saves her life. So
and you're talking about abusive relationships. He's clearly what he is. He talks about to Veronica. He's I don't want you out of my life. He's trying to manipulate her emotionally, and then he's what about sex? Do you want to have sex now? It's
just
dude,
not,
you suck.
Just casual, just sex.
Yeah,
and he's throwing that temper tantrum in the middle of a department store where he throws himself on the floor. That is that's so uncomfortable to me.
Yeah, very cringy.
And yet there are people that do things like that.
Yeah. He says this is such a bad line. I mean, it's he's a bad person for saying it. It's when Veronica's kind of still staying connected with Seth after he's had his transformation, and she's there's still a good person in there. I know it. And he goes I'm sure Typhoid Mary was a very special person if you meet her socially. I was oh my God, what a jerk. Typhoid Mary. I was this is awful. He's a terrible person, and then to have him kind of be redeemed in the end, it doesn't exactly feel earned to me at all.
Yeah, why is he a hero at all? I mean, honestly, it works better with the themes if she breaks the cycle herself without intervention like that. I mean, he doesn't. The only thing he really does is shoot the cable at the end, and he's just there for gross factor to have his limbs boiled off.
Yeah, he's also there for another gross factor, which I think is just to get laid, and that's his whole premise of his character. Which is the same thing with the brother in Lamb. I feel the exact same way about him, comforting the baby lamb, as I do about him trying to save her
Ronnie,
because he's just there for one reason.
I get that. Yeah. We talked about that in our review of that because I have a different take on that. But again, I'm interested to kind of rewatch that movie and take it with that look. Do we want to talk about the weird gymnastics scene after Seth? He's gone through the telepod, and he's starting to change. He's got superpowers now.
He's gross looking.
Well, this is before he's got all the.
Yeah, he still looks
pock
gnarly
on
to me.
face, yeah.
It's you need a shower, buddy.
But this, he's just
they just slathered him up with some oil. Now we're gonna go for what's the movie with Patrick Swayze and the pot the
Ghost?
Yeah, Ghost.
Yeah.
That's what this feel. We need to go. We need to have our own Patrick Swayze, and you need to get on the on the pommel horse and give us a show.
The idea of sexy Jeff Goldblum and like sex god Jeff Goldblum is so weird to me because I just associate him with like, oh yeah, the scientist from Jurassic Park, or like more recently the eccentric the slave owner in Thor Ragnarok, you know, like or you know, like that's what I think of
All
him.
of his apartments.com commercials.
Yeah, and so it's weird to see him like that. I think it's odd. But yeah, my big problem with this whole workout thing that happens is no one is like concerned or freaking out. Like Veronica's in the room seeing him do all this stuff, and then she's not like, "What is happening?" Like there's no score going on in it either. It's just him flipping around on the chin-up bar, and he's like keeps hitting the ceiling with his feet. Like it's just such an awkward scene. And there's like no sound to it. There's nothing going on. No one's like, oh my God.
Music.
Yeah. And no one's like, did you just see what I can do now? Like no one's shocked by it. Like Veronica's reaction is to go up and like touch him on the chest, and that's it. The scene is so weird.
It's very strange.
Yeah. She's like, hey, what Olympics were you in again?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like she just assumed that he was like a D1 athlete or something.
Yeah.
This was normal. And hey, like I just
It's a little
feel
bit
so
more
great.
than just a D1 athlete, man. It's like Olympic level status,
Yeah,
dude.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's just odd.
Well, and it's not only odd because of those things, but it's also the camera. The camera is so uncomfortable in that. It's just trying to get as wide as possible to show us the physical prowess of what he's capable of doing right now. But there's not meaning to it. None of these angles are very interesting. They're really just set up so you don't see the stunt double's face.
Did you see that? Yeah, when he's spinning around on the bar, there's like a beam, like an iron girder beam,
Specifically.
like right in front of it, so you can't see anything.
It's so that I find that so frustrating. I know exactly why they did it, but it does not add anything to the mise en scène of the composition. It's just so I don't even know what the point of it is. Like it goes on for so long. Like you could just have him do his little chair push-ups, and you don't need to have him jump on pipes that can absolutely
not have
support his
Gina
weight.
Davis there. Like she doesn't need to be there. It just makes it so weird and unnatural. Like because you'd be freaking the fuck out. Like you've known him for some time now, and all of a sudden he's just like, I can do these crazy things.
Yeah. Again, that's like, it doesn't help the romance at all. It makes the romance make less sense because like, so have they grown to know each other now? So this should be concerning to her that he can do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, they should have a rapport now. So the fact that he's flipping around, she should be like, whoa, where is this from?
Yeah. When did you learn how to do this? Like, when did you get this like kind of ability? What the heck is going on?
So the fact that she has no reaction at all makes me think like, okay, their relationship hasn't moved forward at all. They still don't know anything about each other. It's that's a crazy scene. That's the kind of stuff I was expecting to see in this movie. Like, that's why I thought this was going to be like, oh, this is going to be a laugh a minute. Like, it's just going to be goofy 80s stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like, we'll continue in that vein because I think the way the 80s treats computers is so funny. It's like no one really understood what a computer was capable of or what it really did.
So they would just press buttons and it would do whatever they needed the story to do.
And you just have a cool graphic show up. And so after Seth has got these powers, he's trying to figure out what's going on because he's kind of starting to deteriorate and become more sick. And he finds out that the fly was in the telepod with them. And again, it's just neat graphics on the computer. And he's like, why is Seth like sick? Like, why does Seth feel this way? And the computer just tells him exactly, like, that's not how any of this works.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the fact that it could actually identify structurally that it was a fly in the first place, like I can kind of understand, like if you're picking points of how to teleport something, you have to have the general shape of the object that was teleported. But to say that like chemically, oh yeah, this is a fly when that's the problem I had. Issue I had with
and
that.
if the computer can recognize it like in his body after he had been teleported, why didn't it just stop it? Like oh hey, there's a fly in there. Computer be like boop boop boop, no transport.
Yeah, they'd be separate, or they'd be separate things. Like it always bugs me. Like where do we draw the line in terms of teleportation? Is it things? How tightly bonded do the atoms need to be? Like is hair necessarily something that's going to be transported the way that we think it is? Because what if you had a loose hair that wasn't connected to your head anymore?
Yeah.
Well, how does that work?
do you become half hair, half human? Like,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what this is missing from like the original. This idea of identity, like you've spliced something together, and it's a totally different thing. And it's a thought experiment with teleportation in general. Like if the atoms are deconstructed and sent somewhere else, do you actually die? Like do you even have a? Is it just the thought of something being recreated by the biological process of the brain that say, I have continued in this, whereas that brain actually did die. And you have the sense that you did die. But to everyone else afterward, it looks like teleportation is real until they actually try and teleport themselves and realize that they died. I think there are a lot of interesting questions there that are just like, oh, there's no politics in insects.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm glad you brought that up because I have a big problem with this that I made a note, the telepod problem. It shows up in that movie Prestige as well. Hugh Jackman's character, he has like that teleporting machine and it creates a duplicate, but like one of them will die. And then there's other theories like people think like the transporters in like Star Trek it's literally killing the person who steps into it and then creating a copy that shows up somewhere else. And I think he even talks about it. He's like, I'm being deconstructed and destroyed and then rebuilt somewhere else. So it's like the idea to me is like, is some amount of self-preservation should take place where you're like, yeah, essentially in like the continuity, it seems just like someone moved from one place to another. But in reality, it's like, did Seth die and now he's a different person? I always have a problem with movies that do these like teleporting things where it's like, yeah, well, technically you die, but there's another one that shows up. So it's like, you didn't really die. It's like, well, I would never step into that because I don't myself want to die. I don't care if there's another version of me that comes out on the end. And to everyone else, it feels like my personal, my persona is carrying on. I just hate that idea. I don't know what you guys think of it. I hate the whole like that teleporting problem, killing yourself and then having another one appear. I think is stupid.
Yeah, it's weird. I definitely would not do it. I'd be like terrified. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get torn into a million pieces and then put back together. No.
Everyone else he tries to put in the telepod has a normal reaction
like,
to it.
No,
like
yeah,
they're all like, I'm afraid. I don't want to do it. It's like, yeah, I'd be afraid too. This is silly.
Yeah, and I wish there was like a hard line of difference in personality. That like they said something about what it means to be teleported, that you're not actually the same person. So if the personality was like 180 degrees after that, and it didn't even have anything to do with the fly, I think that would actually be more fun in terms of thought experiment. It's obviously not as much a horror movie anymore, but if this isn't the same person anymore because they were teleported, I think that's a really fun story. There's so much there that you can explore that isn't cheesy and goofy.
Yeah.
But of course you don't have Brundlefly at the end.
Yeah, which we need Brundlefly. Yeah. But like even after he transports the steak, which is like, don't eat that. But she's like, it tastes artificial.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
And I'm like, so like he should be more of an artificial version of himself than like what he is.
Yeah, I wish they had carried that through. I mean, it's weird thinking that like the whole theme, other than abusive relationships, like the symbol and the motif that they wanted to carry was all about flesh, which is kind of what I think of this film as being skin deep only anyways. So that's helpful in that sense. But like, yeah, how everything is about like, she's like, I'm on to something big, and Stathis is like, what, his cock? And
dude, oh my god, there's
so many dick references in this movie.
Yeah, and that's like the point. It's all about like skin and what it means to be this other person, but it's just a motif. Like we don't actually question any of it.
Yeah.
And it's the same sort of thing with the baboon. Like we don't actually care about the baboon because it's we just care about what its skin is.
Right. I definitely care about the baboon.
Yeah, but I just love like his reaction after like, yeah, I have a hard time transporting organic matter. And he's like, yeah, see, this is what happens. She's like, man, that's unfortunate.
Yep.
Yeah. Which,
oh, darn, you just murdered that baboon. She's not even like, where the fuck did you get baboons from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, did you go to the zoo and just steal those things? What's going on here?
Yeah. Why don't you use mice for like scale? Like, there's like a good reason that they're a normal lab animal for that reason.
I do like that scene though. I think it's the first introduction of the really cool like practical effects, which is again one of the things I like most about this movie, having the baboon like inside out, and it's like pulsing, and it's so creepy, it's so gross, but it's like
freaking pile of silly putty that's breathing.
Yeah,
it's gross as hell, dude. Yeah.
And I think it looks great. Like
it does,
like things like this. And then I watched The Thing not too long ago, and I had never seen it before, and it has these great practical effects, and that's why it's kind of it's a classic. Like people love that movie, and I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, oh my god, this is so good. Like I love 80s practical effects. There's just like I keep saying it and maybe I'm using the word wrong, but to me there's a charming quality to it, even though it's disgusting.
Yeah, and it's funny too, like the continuing on from like the baboon getting turned out, and then Ronnie was like, here feeding her the steak, and she was like, "Oh, I don't want to eat that. There was a baboon in there. I'm like, that's unsanitary."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
it's disgusting. Yeah.
that has nothing to do with the ethical problems of transporting something that is about to implode.
Yeah.
And still like, and then like going on from there is like, I need to teach it the poetry of steak. Like, why is that? Like,
Yeah. It's a weird thing to say.
that's not a scientist. Like,
No.
that's not like, that's something they would have realized a long time ago. Like, I just don't understand like how you even.
He's just so Jeff
justify
Goldblum
that.
in this. Like,
Yeah.
it's the dude just be the same. He's the same character in every movie, and I don't really have a problem with it. He's just the quality he brings to his every movie he's in is so fun that
Yeah.
I don't really mind that he's just Jeff Goldblum all the time. He's always on.
Yeah.
Like his whole rant about how he's jumping into the plasma.
Oh, the plasma dive, and
Yeah.
that's so goofy. And it is so Jeff Goldblum. He's like, oh, you're scared of the plasma, are you?
Yeah, he's like, I'm not talking about just penetration,
it's like-
but penetration of the universe.
It's so goofy. And it's like that's how you're gonna convince someone to get into your telepod is to dive into the plasma. It's so goofy.
It is a very strange thing to say.
But I think I want to turn now from all the kind of fun of this movie, which is kind of the first half, to the part I think is interesting is the change in his character. And I think that there's, I know you said it, you don't really like think he's much of a character, or it's like just kind of he's a allegory for like being a abusive relationship. But I think he has a really good line that deals with his identity, and he's like, I'm an insect that dreamt of being a man and loved it, but now that insect is awake. And he's telling Veronica this. He's like, you need to get out. He's like, I'll hurt you if you stay. And the fact that he delivers that line through pounds and pounds of prosthetic makeup, and I think the way it's filmed looks good. I know Calvin probably won't like this, but he like steps out of the shadow into the light, and it is dramatic. But I love that scene, and I love the line, and I totally bought into it. I was like, that's when for me I was like, oh man, this is like really tragic story. Like,
Yeah.
I felt a lot during that scene.
Yeah. One thing that like reminds me of like the way you feel about that scene is the way I feel about the rooftop scene with him. Which he's trying to stop her from getting the abortion and all that stuff, and he's trying to convince her we should all be one person. Like, he's lost his mind, but it's like this is out of like tragedy to him at this point.
Yeah. I think
It's
there's
like you're trying to get rid of the last part of me that was human.
he says that on the rooftop. He's like, why would you kill Brundle?
Yeah.
Like, because at that point he's Brundlefly. He's not
Yeah.
Brundle anymore. Because I think that's to me, that's why I think there's enough hints at like identity and how he's changed.
Yeah.
Which I get what Calvin's saying. It's probably more well done in the original, but I think there's enough like identity stuff because he talks about he wants to be the first insect politician, and
Yeah.
I think there's enough stuff going on with his character that I can buy that there is identity to him.
And then just how much Jeff Goldblum comes out from underneath that prosthetic makeup is
so
insane.
good.
I'm just like, he looks nothing like him, but yet everything about him is still Jeff Goldblum. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I take them all as like elements of someone going insane rather than someone struggling with identity, because they don't follow a pattern. They don't follow kind of setup payoff type thing. What they seem to say is someone that's just so narcissistic that they think that someone else's baby is more theirs than their partner. You know, it's an equal creation between two people, but the fact that he thinks that he's the only one that has right to it, and that it's more a part of him, and that's like the ego that's coming through. And I think it's an allegory for like modern day interpretations of abortion, like because of that. Like,
Right.
it's when you look at it, it's this gross male like persistence, like of like, I need to exist in the world, I need to pass on my seed, whether you want a maggot in your body or not.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like it's about like, I don't want a rapist's baby, because you
Right,
can think of
yeah.
it like that, because he's turned into a completely different person.
Yeah, you know, that's the dream scene where she goes and has the abortion done. That's David Cronenberg is playing the gynecologist.
Oh,
And He
really?
pulls out the little maggot baby thing.
The thing
That scene is so
disgusting.
creepy.
Yeah, it's gross.
I wish that was real though. Like, I hated that it was
agree,
a
yeah.
dream.
Yeah.
That was really irritating to me, that it was a dream.
I hate almost all dream sequences in movies that make it feel like it's part of the movie. Like, I
Yeah.
hate that so much.
Yeah, if it's not meant to be representational and they're not, and it feels that way, like those ones feel like they're like they exactly like you're saying, like they're happening within the same time frame.
Yeah.
They're happening within the logic of the narrative. So what is really the point if you're not going to say a whole lot with it? It's just like, creepy maggot.
It's just like, oh, hey, we really wanted to do this cool scene, but like we're actually ending the movie before it. But let's just throw in the dream sequence so that way we can show the audience a maggot baby.
Yeah, exactly. Like we already made the maggot baby. Let's throw it in somewhere.
Yeah, we got to use this thing, all right?
A lot of work went into it. It has to be in the movie. Yeah,
I love thinking like probably like inside of it's just like a couple shake weights.
yeah.
I saw some of those at the thrift store the other day. I was like, whoa, I forgot that these existed.
Yeah, wow. They've really taken a tumble.
I always
since
think of
the heyday.
the South Park episode where the shake weight. That's all I ever think about. That's how I associate that. That's how far the shake weights fall, and it's only associated with South Park to me.
Yeah, South Park and thrift shops.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Jane mentioned earlier, I think the climax of this is amazing as far as like the special effects and the prosthetics and practical effects go. The flesh falling off Seth before he tries to force Veronica into the
It's also
telepod.
gross, dude.
It's so gross.
Disgusting.
I think I love like his jaw being ripped off,
Yeah.
and then then you
it's
see
just
like the mandibles under it. It's
Yeah, he's
so creepy. There's
Don't do that.
I love that scene. I think to me that like builds into the tragedy of the character. I think it's like now he's like you've always known he's gross, but now you like really realize like how far this guy has fallen from where he started.
Yeah,
and
the
it's
persona
so horrible.
Yeah, the persona has fallen off, and we see what's really underneath, and that's the terror of like falling into the patterns of abusive relationships. Is when you find out who's really under the skin.
Scarlett Johansson.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's such an old review that we did.
Yeah.
It feels like so long ago when we did Under the Skin.
That's such a great movie and such a mediocre review by us. I think there's some moments there, but that's a long one. I think that was my first episode, right,
Yeah.
where we interviewed me. That's terrible.
No, it's
Yeah.
great.
But yeah,
People should check that one out. It's awesome. But yeah, I
just
love,
click it once at least.
I just love the prosthetic, and then I think again, kind of building on the tragedy of that character is at the end. It seems even though he's like full insect now, it seems Veronica comes up to him with the gun and he like grabs the barrel and puts it on his head. It's like it kind of coming to terms like, okay, like I'm a crappy person. I don't like being this way anymore. It's time to end it. And so I love the ending to this. It almost, for me, mostly redeems the first half ridiculousness of this film because I think the end is awesome. Do you guys enjoy it, or is it just kind of like goofy?
It's super, super cringeworthy. I mean, one part that I love to watch, even though like it makes me uncomfortable.
So
is-
cringeworthy in terms of like just visceral, unsettling.
Yes, like
right?
my physical, like my body is cringing. Like I am like, ooh. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is like when he's using his vomit to melt off dude's hands and feet, and like that is just disgusting. Like he's just throwing up this white, gooey, pudding-looking stuff.
It's so gnarly.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting, man. And like the dude's in pain, and like they show the hand melting for so long. I'm like,
So long.
take the camera away from there. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't look that good.
Yeah, like we get it.
Yeah.
I love too, like how they set up the idea of how he does eat his food. They don't show the one where they record it, but he shows up like, "Oh, Ronnie, I need you to come over," and then he's just like I'm scared, and I don't know what, and he like grabs a donut and like there's no setup for it, like he's just grabbing a donut and he's like, he's like, that's gross.
I shouldn't have done that in front
like
of
that-
you. Like,
Yeah, I don't remember what his line was, but it was just like, yeah, that would. There's a few social codes you just broke by doing whatever the fuck that was.
I think I like to think that David Cronenberg was like, yeah, we're gonna have a scene where you eat and you're gonna puke on the thing, and then Jeff Goldblum just did his own thing for it. Like, 'cause that scene
Yeah.
is so Jeff Goldblum. He's like, that was gross, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Like very self-aware of what happened. He's like, I do love that scene. Like I said, there's so much really neat gross stuff in this. So if you just want to sit down and enjoy 80s grossness, I think this is the perfect movie.
oh
to
yeah,
do
it's
it.
absolutely, as far as 80s grossness goes, I think it's a
Yeah.
home run hitter.
So-
Yeah.
so fun.
Especially the last 20, 30 minutes. The film is actually, I would say it's really good. It would be better as a short if we cut everything else out of the film and just had the last 20, 30 minutes. I think I think it would hit the same, because I don't think that we've set up these characters enough that we care about them to the degree that the acting isn't what saves it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, the stuff that matters to me most in this is is the second half of the movie. Like beyond that, I don't really care. But besides for like kind of just the funny quirkiness of the first half and just kind of the eye rolling, like why is this happening kind of stuff.
Yep.
In the first half, it would have been nice if just the first half was better. That way, it felt more earned at the end. But I still think the end is it's too much fun.
It's great, and when he gets fused with the freaking telepod, like.
Which I have an issue with. Like, if he was instantaneous there, why wasn't he instantaneously, when you're talking about a genetic molecular fusion, why was he not instantly Brundlefly when he went through? Like, why was it slowly changing? Whereas he comes out of with tubes and circuits when he gets fused with the telepod.
Because in the story wouldn't have been
because it's not as good a movie.
Yeah.
Do we want to rate this one, Jaden? How much plasma would you give this one?
I'll give it 5.2 out of 10. I'm not going to give probably any 80s movie above an 8, so there's that scale.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you'd really have to go outside of the U.S. for anything in the 80s that.
Not give a foreign movie that high a score either. So America wins.
You gave Lamb a really good score.
I did.
You gave it a 9.2.
It's a really good movie.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. Calvin,
America still wins.
Calvin, how much plasma do you give this?
I'm gonna give it a 4.6. There's just so many things wrong with it in terms of plot structure, boring composition, character development. It's not even a very good story, like, which is what I think the 80s is all about. It's just like cheesy, fake plastic stories. They're supposed to be easy and digestible, and I don't even follow along.
If this had been Flyest Bueller's Day Off, it would be.
Oh my god, I love that.
I can't wait for that crossover event.
Like that's what the little fly, the baby fly grows up.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love that.
Brundle Bueller.
Yeah. For me, like I said, the second half is just so good to me, and I love, to me, the tragic turn it takes. All of that totally worked for me. I came into this film thinking, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna laugh at this. It's gonna be so goofy. And then the fact that I felt something in it, I was like, oh, like this is really well done. And I think it's a kind of a testament to the filmmaker and the fact that you can pull off some of these scenes with so much prosthetic makeup on. I think Jeff Goldblum's awesome in this. He's just so Jeff Goldblum. I think this is something I don't mind to like just sit and watch every once in a while. I think this is like a solid 8. I like this a lot. I was surprised how much I liked this. But yeah, with that, I think we're closing this one out. I'm your host, Connor, and my co-host, Jaden, and former guest, Calvin.
Thanks for having me back.
All right, thank you for listening to Now This Is Podcasting.